Alex, what's up, man?
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, man. I've been following you since 2019 now.
Damn, OG.
Yeah. I was following Gary Vee too, and he was talking about a lot of this same stuff, and like, there you go. There's somebody actually using LinkedIn growing.
Finally, man, someone had to do it. It's been good.
So I started my agency a couple of years back, or maybe 2 years back, and one of the hardest things I had was finding my own niche. Like, I think because I've heard your story for your own agency, how you could be thinking something is who you're going to serve, but another opportunity comes up and you end up in a completely different place. So maybe if you could tell us what you think of different ways that you can find your niche and how yours found you.
I mean, the way that I found my niche was by actually working at companies like the companies that we work at and figuring out the issues that are in their business and the things that they're not seeing, and the things that they're not thinking about, and then showing them why they should think about it and knowing that it's going to help them get a tangible improvement in business outcomes. So I think that a lot of people try and do it in a vacuum. They try and see, oh, that other firm over there is doing that. That looks cool. Or, oh, Web3 is the new thing. Let's try and sell Web3 to enterprise B2B companies or shit like that. And I really think it comes down to, are you able to understand what's going on in the business? And then are you able to make a tangible impact and show them something non-obvious that they're not thinking about, that they should actually be thinking about? A lot of that comes from experience. And then from there, I think that you can refine who you're going after that. So it's like step one, it has to be a meaningful driver to businesses. And then step two, like for me, I had this sort of like way of thinking about go to market and how you would do marketing and selling and based on how buyers have changed. And then once you get into, okay, that works, now we're selling it to manufacturing companies and direct to consumer companies and software companies. Who are our best customers? Who are willing to pay the most for this? Who are getting the most value from it? Who are staying the longer? Who is the ones that are promoting you and being happy about it? And then you can actually refine from there. And we found, hey, like software companies, because they already invest a ton in customer acquisition, because they have incredibly high gross margins, because they do raise a lot of venture funds and invest in growth, because they already do spend a lot on digital marketing and things like that. They already spend a lot of money on marketing, that moving that money to new activities that work better will definitely work. So that's sort of a refinement that I would go through. One, figure out how are you going to impact the business in a non-obvious way, aka like differentiation of thought, which is really what matters in a professional services company. And then from there, refine the target customer if you choose.
Do you see like dark social helping obviously learn more about your customer but more for finding opportunities?
So I think that leveraging dark social, for those of you that don't know, dark social, through the scale and maturity of the internet, it's created tons of different word of mouth channels like communities, social networks, content platforms, third-party events and meetups that don't get tracked by attribution software and don't create intent data that B2B buyers use to research, evaluate, and purchase products every single day. And so being able to use that, we really leveraged a community, content platforms, and social networks, those three things combined with live events, to basically communicate what we're thinking, what we're seeing, and then be able to get real-time feedback from people on, do these ideas resonate? Should we go further? Are we explaining this properly? What kind of questions do you have? And so I think that this creates a great way to sort of iterate on your point of view, but you got to have a point of view to begin with. I'm not sure that it's there to actually create it. I think that it's there to allow it to grow and evolve. Like the point of view that I had when I started the podcast in 2020 was very clear. I already had 25,000 LinkedIn followers. People were already liking the things that I was doing. And then we added these two things to get more of a flywheel feedback loop, which allowed us to iterate on the messaging a lot faster. But I think that you should split it out between the evolution of the point of view and the creation of the point of view.
My question really is, or my idea is, a lot of the clients that I've gotten out of my niche have been from being like, you know what the hell, I'm going to invite this guy or this industry leader to the podcast and talk to him. And opportunities have come from that. And my idea is, if industries have or businesses have their own podcast and have that structure, that I think everybody's going towards, podcasts, live events, just like you laid it out. Should there be room for exploration and going outside that formula or those topics that you're, planning to execute?
It sort of depends how you draw the walls, right? Like I did Dimension Live and I came with three topics that I was going to talk about every week for more than 100 weeks. And a lot of them I had never talked about before. I didn't have a point of view on. And the act of having 100 people show up live with 3 bullet points and just my brain got me in a place where I would basically have to be a forcing function to, okay, I got to try and figure out how to communicate this. And then you do it 1 or 2 or 3 times and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I nailed it. This is what people want. The root of your question is that sort of stay in your lane. It really depends on how you draw the lines. I think that it's more about talking about things mine was purely experimentation. Hey, I've never talked about this before. I don't know if people are going to throw tomatoes at me through the screen or whether people are going to be cheering, but this is something that's on my mind that I want to explore and talk about. And I almost saw it as a little bit of art. You know what I mean? Like content creation's a lot of art. Like I found a place where I could set up and basically I had a bunch of people watch me figuratively paint, which was me communicating my ideas. And then some people would like the painting, other people wouldn't like the painting. And over time, you figure out where's the right sort of formula here. So I do believe that live events should be used for experimentation of the messaging, but not necessarily like a huge deviation from the core point of view. Like the point of view is a pillar in the ground or multiple pillars in the ground that are not going to change at all, So at least for a really long period of time. And so I think that the pillars remain the same, and then how you message it and the details inside of it, and how you talk about your ad strategy or your messaging strategy or customer research strategy, those things have plenty of areas to explore.
And you think that the head of the organization should be that face that making that content, being in that podcast, having those live events, or can it be somebody else? Because that's one of the hardest things that in older guard businesses I've had with the owner or the CEO being that content leader.
I think that if this isn't a strategy from the beginning, then it's not going to be a strategy that you evolve into, if that makes sense. Like my business started and we constructed the marketing team, the sales team, the product team around my skills, right? And so that the content creation would allow us to be able, and the amplification of my ideas would be able to allow us to acquire customers in a different way, which means that we need less marketing resources overall. We need less sales resources overall because all the top of the funnel gets handled by me. And so we built the organization initially off of that traction. If you're a company and you own a $30 million manufacturing business and you didn't go through that, then you built your organization to not need that. And then it's just hard to, once you get up there, to try and go back and act scrappy and get into communities and do live events and grind and do a live event every Tuesday night for 2 years. When you got a $30 million business, maybe you don't want to do that stuff as a CEO. So I sort of feel like for most companies, you either got it or you don't. You either start with it and you grow that way, or you're going to grow without it. And then you're going to have to figure out, okay, then maybe you hire some VP that becomes the evangelist. I think that both can work, but I obviously believe that having the person that's driving the strategic vision of the company, who's also the person that's interacting with customers, prospects in the market on an ongoing basis inside of communities, I think that is a very clear and interesting advantage for myself.
Is this the new way, or just like business and life? Any business, maybe you're better at something else, they're still gonna grow, and it won't break you if you're not on social, if you're not doing these type of strategies that are prominent now in new businesses.
It won't break, you're just missing opportunities, right? Like imagine if my company hadn't done LinkedIn, a podcast, and the community that we built, we'd probably still have less than 10 people that worked here. We wouldn't be out of business. We wouldn't be losing. I'd still probably be happy, but we would have just missed this huge delta of opportunity that you see some companies but very few companies capitalize on it, and most don't. And so not doing these things doesn't mean that you're going to go out of business. It just means that you're missing more customers and other people are going to get your customers.
And if you're going that way of like having a whole media team, I agree with this point that I think you recently said, that each company should have internal employees doing this and not an agency. But what do you see the role of the agency then?
So if you are going to use an agency to facilitate what we're talking about, which is basically like a podcast, social media content, things like that, I think that the agency is best suited for behind the scenes post-production. So editing the videos, editing the podcast, but internally you have to control the point of view. You have to organize the event. You have to have the person actually speak their point of view and ideas, aka doing all the recording. Then you ship the recording off to some other firm if you want. They do all the nuts and bolts. Okay, we got to edit this. We got to make it sound good. We got to cut people's ums out. And then they can come back and send you the files, and then you can post it on the podcast. You should definitely write the copy. So I write the copy for all my posts across all social channels. And it matters when I make a post with a video and I mail it in on the copy versus when I write thoughtful copy, the performance of the post is dramatically different. And so having the people, like, I know there's a lot of CEOs that have ghostwriters that do that. Like, I just pose the question to people: would you be listening to me? Would you listen to my LinkedIn posts on LinkedIn every day if someone else wrote them? Not the idea that I'm not doing it and someone else is, that the quality of the ideas would not be impactful enough for you to keep listening to me because someone else is manufacturing them. So there's just a huge level of disrespect for the quality of the ideas that drive the content strategy. And some people, just because of how SEO content has become so commoditized, that they think all content should be a commodity. And content's art, like I mentioned earlier. And there are tons of starving artists, and there are a couple artists that really make it. And the quality of the art is the difference, the quality of the content.
Yeah, and I mean, just the connection. If you comment on someone's post and they comment back, and then maybe you meet them in person, how's it going to feel when you kind of like, hey, remember these? Like, yeah. And is it was somebody else that responding using that personal profile? This disconnect of like communication. Yeah. So first step would be, you think, for these businesses, if they want to move forward, be internally, have the strategy done internally, have the execution of like the filming, the topics, all that kind of stuff internal, but maybe just, like you said, nuts and bolts, the post-production offsite, where you don't need to have the editor, maybe.
I think that's the way that you could set it up. But like, before you worry about any of that stuff, what you need to worry about is, do people care about my ideas? No, it doesn't matter if you can edit the podcast or not if no one cares what you're saying. And so like starting in like, all I did was, it was just me, and I started sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn, and that became the validation point that, hey, these ideas are way more unique than I expected. People, like, I thought everyone knew this. Nobody actually knows this stuff. I'm educating a lot of people and they're getting value from it. Let's hire a video editor. Okay, now we got a video editor. Oh, video content's working better. Like, we're already doing live events. Why don't we just record them and make them into a podcast? Let's hire a marketing manager. Now we got the podcast and live events and video content for LinkedIn. Okay, now shit's rolling. TikTok's emerging. Let's get another video editor. And you build. I think that a lot of companies get stuck because they try and get to the end before they took the first step. They're trying to have the 6-person team running and managing 7 channels that are all delivering pipeline before they even made a LinkedIn post that people like. And so I do think there's a level of sort of like getting the flywheel going that people overlook and just expect to just show up and be famous. So I recommend trying to create the minimum viable thing is, can I post written ideas on my blog, on LinkedIn, and a different platform that people respond to positively, and it's clear that I have non-obvious insights that other people don't want and they value.
Okay, so yeah, start proving the concept before you commit, and start building it out and scaling it. Invest with results. And you still believe that LinkedIn is a good platform for growth?
I think if you sell B2B products and services B2B, that still at the moment that there's no social network that competes with the attention of B2B decision makers than LinkedIn. if you expand that out and say outside of social networks, then I do think that live events and a podcast become a really close second. They're almost so intertwined together. But if I was a B2B company and I had a point of view that people cared about, and I had someone that was open to doing the things that I'm doing, I would do a live event every week. That live event would become a podcast. The event would become a community, and the podcast would become social content for strictly LinkedIn. And that simple formula of do one event a week, have content for the whole week, keep innovating, almost any company with some level of discipline and commitment could pull that off. And I think that they'd have a stronger business by doing it. So that would be the place where I start, those three.
Do you see any kind of industries that you've run into that you wouldn't suggest this type of strategy?
If you sell commodity goods into commodity markets, then this may not be the right strategy for you. If you sell something that has a high barrier to entry, is multi-stakeholder, has a high degree of organizational change or transformation required, does not have a lot of prerequisite existing category dynamics already, then I think this is the only strategy that you have. You need to go out and create demand for something new that you're offering that's transformative to customers. And so a lot of software products do fall into that. A lot of services products, if they're built the right way, fall into that category as well. But if you are selling commodity light bulbs through a distributor and you don't control the customer experience and you sell a commodity, then I don't think this is going to help you all that much. You have to decide whether, do I have a business strategy issue? Am I targeting the right customer? Do I have the right unit economics? Are people willing to pay? Is the product differentiated? Have I created a new category that people recognize? Is it that type of issue? Or is it that we have something that people love that people just need to know more about? And if you fall into the second category, that's when you have podcasts, LinkedIn ads targeted at these people. That's when that type of stuff actually works. But recognizing, do I need a marketing agency or do I need to fix my fucking business strategy? And that's something that people get wrong often. A lot of early stage companies find it difficult to believe that people don't want their stuff, or it's not positioned the right way, or they're not messaging it the right way, or they can't deliver it in a repeatable way. So instead of admitting those challenging sort of realizations, they just say, oh, we have a marketing problem. Let's hire an agency and run lead gen. It doesn't get them to what they want.
What's been the biggest change, or the change that you've liked the most in your personal life once you started out doing your own business and you left working for somebody?
The biggest change in my personal life when I started my company is the fact that I'm able to explore and do all the things that I want to do. That, like, when I worked at a company and I had an idea that was like, hey, we should definitely be selling this product e-commerce. It makes, like, why wouldn't we? It's a commodity good. People order it in bulk. Like, what? We could sell this to customers. We have way better data. We'd have way lower CAC, things like that. Why aren't we doing this? And when you work at a business, you spend 6 months trying to get people on board. And when you're the executive, like today, I made a decision, hey, we're going to try something. I make a couple of phone calls, and then I'm saying, okay, we're going to go out and execute this tomorrow. And so, like, I just challenge the way that things happen and the way that we do things. And I am agile in how I iterate. And being in a company felt like I was in prison to that creative outlet. And so being able to fully sort of like tackle the ideas that I want to be able to tackle and prioritize the things that I want to prioritize, I think has been the most freeing part of growing my company. And then the evolution that you need to go through as a leader of a business, from when it's just you doing consulting to when you have 8 people, to when you have a 3-person executive team, to when you have a 6-person executive team, to when you have, hundreds of people. That type of evolution and change sort of puts pressure on you to evolve as both as a leader, but also as a human. When you own your business and you don't have tons of investors in it, your life and your business become the same thing. Everyone else goes to work, and then when they leave, they can just be themselves. When I leave work, the work comes with me, and vice versa. When I go to work, I can just be me personally. And that blend is something that I think a lot of people can't get comfortable with, which is something that I've felt a lot of freedom there to start to bring my personal self to work and to bring my work self to personal. Those are some of the things that have been cool for me so far.
Yeah, I think I've experienced the same thing where you're kind of forced, like you said, you're forced to either become better or just fail the people that are working for you, right? Kind of. I think we're just about done with time. I don't know if you'd like to add anything else.
No, man. How far along are you?
Well, we just hired our very first marketing manager. So
cool.
We have 3 people. Soon to hire another editor and maybe a videographer, and then we're to 5.
Nice. Yep. It'll be smooth sailing until around 6 to 8 people, and then you'll have to change around the things that you do. So I found like very predictable breakpoints at 8, like around 8 people, around 25 people, and then around 100 people. So you got some milestones to look forward to, but the next couple, just focus on figuring out how to get customers.
Yeah. I think that for me, the marketing agency, because I co-own another business, international recruitment and immigration here in Canada. We have a big skilled labor shortage. And for that one, it's not so much like passion because I love the whole creativity. And I've been able to be very cold and factual and business driven and data driven. But with the marketing agency, I've had the difficulty of choosing the markets and be more cold because I'm more emotional on that side. So that's been my difficulty.
You shouldn't have that figured out yet. You should, like, that stuff gets figured out like 10 to 25 people. Right now, it's just like get customers and then see what happens. Like, I think that really is the approach at the beginning. And then by trial and error, you see what are the patterns, what are things going well, why are things breaking down? You start to see, okay, these are the red flags to look for in the sales process. These are the things where customers end up, leaving after 3 months because they were a seed stage company and they didn't have enough money, or you'll find the patterns in that. But initially, I really think it's like, do all that you can to try, like, you obviously want to have the customer set up for success, but the reality is that you don't really know yet what are the things that make you set up for success, or what does even success mean. So I would treat it like just trial and error for right now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you taking the time and still taking on other people's podcasts. I like that.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for having me, and catch up with you soon.
All right. See you later, Chris. Bye.
See you.